Okay, hello and welcome to Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. Please hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, please hit like. The last time I left off, I told you that I was going to do the next video would be about Joey Testa. It is not. I'm waiting on a court document for that story. If I cannot get it today, then I will go ahead and do the story anyway, either tonight or tomorrow. Probably be posted tomorrow. So this story is going to be about three guys. That is Nick Gio, which was an associate of the Chicago outfit. Nick the Chemist, I'll call him. Obviously, that's not his real last name. He's from Philadelphia, close ties with the Philadelphia mob. Was one of the leading methamphetamine producers in the 80s and 90s. And John Stanfa, who was the mob boss of the Philly mob in the early 90s, I think 91 to 95, who is in federal prison, was sentenced to life on extortion, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and on and on. So I was involved in this. This is firsthand info. This is an incident that took place in 2000, I'm sorry. And this is how the story goes. Now, this was reported on in one of the Philadelphia papers back in that time period. This incident took place at the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. And I wrote a story about it called The Sixth Family. It's on Guerrilla Convict, so it ties it. It's all about that incident. So anyway, this is how the story goes. To begin with, on this first day my first day inside of Leavenworth prison, my first day of going to the yard, I went out there with a guy named Rory Gregory, whom I met at the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma when I came in. Rory was a jailhouse lawyer. We went out to talk about cases and stuff, and he introduced me to John Stanfa. Now, my last name is Rosso. Because my last name is Rosso, and I'm Italian, I was automatically, they didn't know, where I fit in, who I was riding with, so to speak. So the Italian guys kind of embraced me really good. And so among them, John Stanfa, Bobby Manna, Junior Bradley, who's Irish/Italian from Kansas City, Jerry Ruggiero. He's the underboss for Carmine's for the Colombo family. God, I drew a blank. Oh God, there's so many guys. There's so many guys there at that time. Hans Groff for out of Cincinnati. He was actually German. Anyway, he was a hitman for those guys. So the Ohio crew. So anyway, this is how this story goes. John Stanfa was a big deal in USP Leavenworth. Really well respected, really nice guy, polite to everybody. Ran the commissary and the warehouse pretty much at that time. He had it going on in prison. He got the paper from Philly, of course, like most mob guys get their hometown paper, and he was no exception. So in that paper was an article about Nick the Chemist. Nick the Chemist, as I said, he was a big meth cook, pled guilty, and he told all his co-defendants to testify against him, to go ahead and save their ass because he was facing life anyway. Now, Nick was at the top. Nick the Chemist was at the top. He didn't have anybody to tell on, okay? So what he did was he told the feds how he got chemicals into the United States legally, not illegally. So, so technically he wasn't snitching. Nobody went to prison. What he did, you can say, is more than likely shut down a pipeline for chemicals that were used to make methamphetamine. At that time, it was probably P2P dope. For most of you that know or many of you that know the difference between the different types of meth, that's the old school meth. So more than likely, he shut down a good avenue, okay, because he was a big producer. For doing that, for telling the feds how he got all his chemicals, he expected to get 30 years. Now he was facing mandatory life. That is, he had 2 or more prior drug convictions, and you're automatically facing a life sentence. And he pled guilty. He wanted the points for acceptance of responsibility, and because he cooperated, he figured he'd get 30. He did not. When he didn't, he had some sort of outburst in the courtroom that said, "I thought I was going to get something good here today." That was quoted in the paper. If that wasn't the exact quote, it was really close. I did read it. It's been, 2000. So Nick arrives at Leavenworth. And from what I understand, I believe that Nick, so the Philadelphia mob at the time, they had a split going on between those guys, and I believe that Nick was friends with a side of the Philadelphia mob that John Stanfa was not. Could be wrong, but I believe that's how that story went. When Nick arrived, he was originally put in A block, and somebody had ordered a contract on him. That is, they paid the arms, Aryan Resistance Movement or militia. I always forget which one they go by in prison. Arms. There wasn't that many of them at the time, but they paid him to go hit Nick the Chemist. Well, it didn't turn out so good. So 3 arms went in, and Nick whooped them all. Now, that stuff kind of happens. I've been on that end, meaning some of my guys have been in before, got our asses kicked, and you got egg on your face, and you just gotta pick yourself up and try again. But yeah, they got whooped. They got paid still for going in. Nick went to the hole for like a week, and then he came back out, and then he was put into B block. That's the B lower. That's where I was. Enter Nick Gio. Nick Gio, from what I understand, his father had a liquor store in Chicago. He was hooked up with the Chicago outfit, the father was, and Nick as a little boy would often hear them having mob meetings in the back of the father's liquor store or thereabouts. Again, this could be a little off, but because it's been a while, my memory's a little cloudy on this. However, Nick overheard that there was a guy that they wanted to kill, and he was 17 or 18 at the time, and again, not in the mob, overheard this, and he was driving down the street one day with a friend from school, and he sees the guy that these mobsters were talking about. He sees the alleged rat. Nick pulls over, shoots, and kills the guy in front of his high school friends. He gets back in the car and says, blows the gun. That's how we do it in the outfit. Okay, so that's how the story goes. Anyway, Nick falls, gets life. Actually, he's doing life in the state of Illinois right now, I believe, for that same murder. But he ended up going to the feds for 10 years. He had a wild imagination. That's what I would like to say. Not a bad guy. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine. We were talking about how you can be whoever you want when you go to federal prison or any prison. So especially if you've got a long period of time, you can reinvent yourself if you don't like who you were on the street. As long as you keep it consistent, you can become whoever you want. If you go to prison and say, hey, I'm a jailhouse lawyer, and you just keep at it, well, all of a sudden you believe it and you become this jailhouse lawyer. If you want to become this gang member or this convict and want to be the baddest mofo there is, then there it is. That's my work phone and I can't answer it. So anyway, Nick had a wild imagination. I think that's the best way for me to put it. And he was telling people that the boss of the Chicago outfit, which is a guy named Gus, would send him to exotic places and islands and all this stuff. He was 18. He did have pictures of himself, posing in front of Porsches and exotic sports cars and all that stuff. I heard he rented them. But people knew this about Nick. Nobody disrespected him, and nobody said, Nick, you're a clown. If you went into his cell, there was all mob books. His whole shelf was lined with all mafia books. So he was super, super infatuated with the mafia, okay? And he did go to trial with the mob. He was an associate of the Chicago mob, hands down. Well, Nick Gio and Nick the Chemist become friends in B lower. And over time, they become better friends. At some point, Nick Gio, Nick the chemist, that Ord says that John Stanfa was the one that put the hit out on him. Now let's go back. 3 arms run in there, they hit him, he beats, or try to go to hit him, he assault him, he beats their asses, he goes to the hole, then he gets back out. He doesn't really know who did this. He doesn't really know where this came from. I know that he kind of guessed and suspected it was from John, but he had no proof. Nick Gio told Nick the chemist that John was the one that did this. One day I'm in the chow hall, I'm on the napkin crew. The napkin crew meant we went in there at anywhere between 12 and 3, and we folded napkins. But what we really did is we went in there and folded napkins and got drunk and got high. Leavenworth was a stone cold party. It was just a party, and in the kitchen they made trash cans full of wine. So we'd go in there and drink wine and fold napkins and have a grand old time, eat food before everybody else. Food was really good in the feds back then. Just outstanding. And then you had Junior Bradley, who was the kitchen clerk, getting all the fresh produce and stuff from local people in Kansas City, with whom he had connections. So he would bring exclusive stuff in. And because, again, I was Italian, and because they liked me, and because I was in the kitchen, I got to eat some of that stuff. So we had it going on. Well, it was short line. Short line means some of the workers eat first. That is, hallway workers, commissary workers, special guys, Unicor workers, they go eat before the general population. And this was for lunch short line. And I was in there at 10 o'clock doing napkins that day. And I was drinking, so there was some peach wine that a couple of my bros had made. Nick the chemist comes walking in. John Stanford gets his tray. He's walking over to the table. Mob guys had a table. And Nick the chemist has a soda pop can in his house and hits in his hand and smashes John Stanford in the face. Boom. John's late 60s, 70s. He's 60s at the time. Matter of fact, he's probably mid or early 60s. Nick is 45. Nick's tough. He whooped 3 guys. So John goes down, and he's got blood coming out, and he gets up, and the food's everywhere. And I'll never forget, he goes, shame, shame. Shame on you. You shouldn't have did that or something. I forgot the exact words. I remember it. It's in that article, the six family. But it was classic. It was a classic, mob, just blood ripping down his face, like, you're hit. John and Nick both go to the hole. Nick, the chemist, of course, people feared, or there was, the rumors were that he had a contract out on his life, that John still had the pull to kill him in different prisons. And I would say that in some prisons that might be true, or in some circumstances, but a lot of the guys don't have the pull that people think. Now, that doesn't mean some youngster that's infatuated with the mob, or that wants to, a mob do boy, or let's say that John, and he didn't, but let's say John had some guys that swung on his nuts that were just on him. That's the danger. Those are the guys that can kill you for, just out of the blue. They got you, you don't even know why you're got, and they did it just to make a name, just to press somebody or whatnot. So John Stanfa gets back out of the hole into the dirty white boys. Now, what had really happened is when John Stanfa brought it to the mobster's table that Nick the chemist was coming and showed the paper, it was actually Nick Gio, not John Stanfa, who paid the arms to hit Nick the chemist. And again, Nick the chemist then comes to be lower, and Nick Gio, they befriend, they become like freaking frack. They're tight. So John knows this. I never had any direct dealings with John, so I want to be clear with that. There was a guy from Philly who was friends with our shot caller, whom I'll call Gator, and I was new to the DWBs, Dirty White Boys, and I was in the negotiation on a contract on Nick Gio. That is, Nick gets hit, not killed, assaulted. Nick gets assaulted, and they're paid in dope. Dirty white boys are paid in dope. So, Nick Gio is not a stupid guy. He is very good about his surroundings. He is like most people that have been in prison a while. He can feel the energy changing. He knew that there was people plotting against him, and he was getting very nervous. Me or some of my bros had told people outside of our gang what was going on. That happens in prison all the time. Usually we're getting high with somebody. Let's say I get high with a guy named Phil, for example. Phil has nothing to do with the dirty white boys. We get high. I'm like, hey, bro, make sure you get your stuff ready. We're going to go on lockdown because we're going to go do a hit. And even though you're sworn to secrecy, that's how it usually goes down. Well, a guy named Big Jerry, Tommy Rutledge, who was my own cellie, and those guys were good friends of Nick Gio's. I don't know who tipped Nick Gio off, but Nick was tipped off. Wilbur is a long-time dirty white boy from Tennessee. He's in the feds right now. And there was a bro of mine named Dusty. And they were the ones that were called to do, they were the two that were going to go hit Nick. That was their mission. I was to keep point. I was to, there was a cart with a pipe that was brought in. We were going to hit him with the pipe. Some razor blades, stuff like knives. He was going to get, so there was a contract. And then there was also an added bonus that if his face was cut, there was extra on the table. Again, this is not a murder. So it was right before Mainline. Nick Gio knows something's going on. He sees Wilbur in the block. Wilbur's not supposed to be in the block. And he confronts Dusty and Wilbur and asks if they're going to hit him. So Dusty and Wilbur said, man, come here. What are you talking about? Come, let's go to your cell and let's talk. Well, they went up to the cell. Dusty and Wilbur stomped the shit out of Nick. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine a little while ago who was there during the incident. Nick, who was a good fighter, who could box, who was standing at Nick Gio, stood in line one day and knocked two people out. Somebody said something, pieced him up, pieced this guy, and knocked him out. So he was not no bitch by no means. I don't ever want to, I said he had a wild imagination. He absolutely, he did at the time. He's grown. I don't know what his life's like right now. He was wild. Good to me. I was always all right with him. This was business, and, he wanted to play in those games. You want to swim with sharks. Well, that's what happens. So when they hit him inside the cell, and he was really vain, he liked to look at himself in the mirror. He liked to put lotion on his skin, and when he got that razor hit, he was screaming bloody murder, and he came out of that cell somehow. And he flew down the stairs. It was like he did a cartwheel from the top of the stairs all the way. It was the craziest move I've ever seen. And he ran right into the cops' arms. Cops were all coming. He ran like save me, protect me. And he could never repeat that move. I should say when he ran, he first ran into the top of the stairwell and he fumbled, and Wilbur was able to kick him, and Wilbur kicked him halfway down the stairs. Then he did some kind of crazy cartwheel where he landed on his feet. And it was just crazy how it happened. Again, it was like some crazy acrobat. It should have been an Olympics for it. And anyway, he got bloodied up. He survived. Ended up going to Allenwood, I think. I don't, like I said, when I wrote an article about this, which was a lot, it was centered around this, but there was other things added. Some girl that I think he's married to, or somebody wrote me and just kind of cursed me out about this, that I was a liar and a dope fiend and this and that. That's what happened. Now, Dusty, one of the assailants in the case, was facing other charges and in fact got an extra 4 years added to his sentence for some kind of introduction case or illegal use of the telephone. While him and Wilbur were in the hole for this Nick Gio assault, the FBI came in, and the FBI offered Dusty to erase his new case, to squash. They were told they were being charged with assaulting Nick Gio for a mob. They were told that they had information. So they were going to squash the new case. The case that he got for the illegal use of telephone introduction, squash that, and release him from prison early if he linked John Stanfa up. That, my friends, is a fact. And that's what happened. That was the whole ordeal between John Stanfa, Nick the Chemist, and Nick Gio. John Stanfa, by the way, is currently in Fort Dix Medical Center. I just read this online before I came. I was checking up on him. I don't know if he's in bad health or what the deal is. Nick Gio is serving time for murder in an Illinois State prison. I wish him the best. And I think Nick the Chemist is dead. I think he died. Well, anyway, this is a part of the Mob Chronicles. Stay tuned next for Joey Testa. That's the next video for sure.